Morning everyone, how are you guys doing out there today? So, are you thinking big enough? Interesting topic, something that I wanted to draw attention to. This applies in so many different ways, but let's focus specifically on the sorts of deals that you're doing and how you're operating and just how you're thinking really, because if you can expand your mind, be a bit more creative and think a little bit bigger, I'm of the opinion that there are lots of benefits to doing that, and I'd be really interested to hear what you guys have to say about that as well. So let's take a quick example, a sort of comparison of two deals that I've worked on in the last 12 months and why I think there's a case for doing more bigger deals now going forward in light of the experience that I'm having. So I bought a house last year for near Gatwick Airport for £207,000. Did a 50 grand renovation on it. It's now worth maybe 325, and it's renting for £2.5 a month. Nice kind of vanilla HMO style deal. Nothing wrong with it at all. Fine, good return on investment. We've had 100% occupancy through the first kind of 12 months. We've taken a hit down to about 80% occupancy recently in light of the way in which Gatwick Airport has been affected by coronavirus, but we're actually back up to 100% now. We had, I think, about a month that we were affected, but the house was brand new, and we really look after everyone. So actually the service we were offering was good, and I think we rode out the storm a little bit better than some of the other landlords in the area. But that's that deal. Nothing wrong with it, all good. Currently in the process of buying a 3-bedroom townhouse in central London that can will probably most certainly operate it as a single let initially, but it's big enough in scope that it could be perhaps a 5 or 6 bedroom HMO, subject to getting all the licensing and all the rest of it. But the point I want to make here is that if we take round numbers, let's say that the first deal was 200,000 and this one's $1 million. It's 5 times bigger, right? And the ROI is essentially the same. Like the figures are very similar indeed, both very healthy, both good deals. But if I would have had to have done 5 of the deals in Crawley for the exact same net result as this one, right? Which means paying 5 times as many solicitor fees. I've got to pay. Time-wise, I've got to go through all the conveyancing process and fill out all the paperwork. I've got to do all that 5 times. I've got to organise 5 build projects rather than 1. So in terms of efficiency of time, this has been a dream really, because it's the exact same amount of work to achieve the exact same end result. And I would just sort of say, based on that experience, I'm leaning very much more towards doing fewer, bigger deals. Now, if I can do obviously the same amount of bigger deals, well then fantastic. But from a time standpoint, much, much, much more efficient. And I'm meeting tomorrow with my architect and planning consultant to wrap my head around all of these planning permitted development changes, with a view towards buying commercial buildings and repurposing them over to residential, maybe creating blocks of flats. And again, I suspect there'll be bigger deals with larger numbers, but very, very efficient in the same respect, because you've only got to buy them once, you've only got to organise the finance once, and you end up with an asset value of that's much higher. And in the case of having a block of flats as opposed to a large HMO, and this is a separate conversation, what are your experiences of operating single lets versus HMOs? I've always liked HMOs very much, but one has to acknowledge that there is more management. You get rewarded for that in profit terms mostly, so that's always been worth it for me. But if I could build a portfolio based more around flats with individual tenancies as opposed to large HMOs with higher management, again, that's efficiency in terms of operations. So you kind of start to think about it all in that way. Plus also, and I think this is a really important point, how much competition is there? if you're buying 3-bedroom semi-detached houses for 200 grand or below, or even 500 grand or below, you know, there's a lot of people out there doing the same thing that you're doing. I think that the minute you go into a bigger territory, maybe $1 million and above perhaps, I'm not quite sure where the sweet spot is, it's kind of a bit too big for a lot of people, and perhaps also a bit more complicated in terms of the things that you've got to think about, so there's a bit of a barrier to entry. But it's also not big enough for the larger players like hedge funds and big developers who only really want to get involved in a project where it's 10, 20, 30 million and above and a really, really significant project size. So actually, if you can sort of go big enough to get away from the masses, but not too big that you're then competing on a corporate level. Perhaps you're working in a kind of area where the air is thinner and you can really get to work in a way that you can't under normal circumstances. So look, you're thinking anyway, we all are, and I just think you might as well be thinking bigger, because actually I think that there's massive benefits to doing so, both in terms of time efficiency, monetary efficiency, and competition, or the lack thereof. So I hope that's useful. I hope there's something to think about there for you guys. What are your thoughts on this? Have you done bigger deals, smaller deals? What's been your experience of each? Would you rather have a portfolio of rooms or flats? Do you think there's merit in this kind of middle ground where you're able to operate in a more efficient manner with less competition? I'd love to hear all of that, what you've got to say. So please comment below, send me a message, whatever you think you'd like to do to get in touch. I'd love to hear from you. Enjoy the sunshine, have a wonderful week, and I wish you every success in what you're doing. Okay, bye for now.